Is Josh Jacobs overvalued or undervalued in dynasty leagues? We're talking about him and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is former NFL scout Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, how's it going today?
Hey, it's great. How are you?
I'm good. We are talking Las Vegas Raiders today. This is our final episode of the buy, sell, hold series. We have covered every single team over the past several weeks. The AFC West is our last one, and that'll finish up tomorrow as Kate and Marcus put a bow on this series for us. The Raiders, I don't know if maybe we should have ended with the Chiefs. We talked Chiefs yesterday on the 4th of July and enjoyed that conversation. Lots of fun players to talk about there. And I don't know. It just feels like the Raiders have really taken a step back with the moves they've made this offseason. Obviously, Derek Carr is gone. Say what you will about that, but he was at least consistent for them. I don't know that they've upgraded their quarterback position. Darren Waller is gone. And, now just lots of questions around this team. In the end, I don't think they're as good or going to be as good as they were last year. So kind of a bummer, but I'm excited about Josh Jacobs. What do you think about him?
Yeah, and real quick, it's funny because on Monday, Peacock and I on Peacock and Williamson, tune in, check that out. We're talking about, power ranks and who are the worst teams in the league. And I just threw out there that I don't think people look at the Titans and Raiders in this light, but I think there's a chance that they might be the worst two teams in the AFC when it's all said and done. Like I have a hard time being optimistic about the direction of this team. Are they in it to win it, or are they biding time for the next quarterback? And I don't know about their head coach. So, I don't love where they're at, and I don't want to invest in them heavily.
Yeah, I mean, that's the downside here when it comes to Josh Jacobs is just his surroundings. But his surroundings were not great, really, at any point in his career. And he's been a very solid running back. Really, I think he was really undervalued his first 3 years in the league, and then, of course, broke out last year. I think he finished as the RB3 on the year with just a huge season. There's still questions about his status as he got the franchise tag and is certainly not happy with that. The same situation that Saquon Barkley is dealing with, and just the general discontent from running backs right now around the league. And it's hard to really blame them, honestly. But Jacobs is up to the RB10 in our DLF Dynasty ADP. And I do think he's at a point where you could really argue either way that he is overvalued or undervalued, depending on what you think of him as a player and his future. Younger than you might think, just turned 25. He's the same age as your guy there in Pittsburgh, Najee Harris, who just entered the league a couple years ago. So he's got some years on Harris in the league, but they are the same age. You look at the ADP, Jacobs at 10, Harris at 11, Tony Pollard, Kenneth Walker, Ramondre Stevenson down there at RB14. That's a pretty strong tier. Back end RB1, early RB2 guys.
I love Stevenson. I think he's low. I just want to throw that out there since our last team went out there. But I consider Jacobs as a buy. And I know this isn't the same as our Dynasty outlet, but in best ball, you could get this guy in the 3rd round. And he was like the running back 1 last year, 2 or whatever. And one key that you didn't throw out there that I think is super important is I kind of gave Josh McDaniels a hard time, but John Gruden never threw him the ball. He had very few catches, and he was a really good receiver at Bama. I mean, that's why he was a 1st-round pick. So now he's added catches to already a strong running profile, and he is only 25. So I think he's more of a buy than a sell.
Good. We're mostly on the same page. Before we go any further, let's list the Las Vegas Raiders here. I almost forgot to do that on yesterday's show, so we'll get right to it right now. Josh Jacobs is the most valuable member of the team from a dynasty standpoint at RB10. Devontae Adams is next at wide receiver 17, and then a big drop off. We've got the rookie tight end Michael Mayer next at tight end 12. Talk about him coming up. Couple wide receivers here. Jacoby Myers, of course, formerly of the Patriots, is wide receiver 55. And then Hunter Renfrow is wide receiver 82. So again, you can see the gap between those two players represented here. Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback 31. Zamir White, RB 73. Trey Tucker, the wide receiver 107. And Austin Hooper, veteran tight end, is tight end 43. So tough to find a lot to be excited about there, though. You said you almost chose Jacobs as your as your buy. Who did you identify as a player to buy instead of Jacobs?
And I don't have super strong feelings, but I took Renfrow because he's so cheap and he's had success in this league, and maybe he ends up on another team. I know he's got a rough contract, but wide receiver 82. I mean, he's like a throw-in. So, I'll keep him on the bottom of my roster and hope something breaks his way. And the other one was Jacoby Myers, who I don't love, but they just gave him money. As usual, they have this infatuation with former Patriots and the Patriot way, and he'll fit right in, I mean, so he's a good player. He doesn't get enough recognition as being a quality dude. And he's wide receiver 55. It wouldn't shock me when the season ends, he's a wide receiver 3.
I totally agree. And I really think Myers is undervalued. You look at what he has done, specifically the past 2 years in New England. I know he had the stretch there, really stretch that lasted more than a full season where just couldn't find the end zone.
Yeah.
He broke that in a big way last year. But you just look over the past 2 years, and I mean, not earth-shattering numbers, but he gave us 4 wide receiver 1 games over the past 2 seasons. He's a wide receiver 2 19% of the time. So you're talking about getting top 24 wide receiver production, essentially a third of the games. Yeah, not bad for where he is. Again, wide receiver 55. We've basically seen his value drop since going to Las Vegas. And I don't know. I mean, he was kind of the top option by default in New England, and you had to expect he was going to go somewhere where he would be the second option. He's certainly that with Devontae Adams, but Darren Waller being gone, I think is a good thing for Myers. I think he's just way too cheap right now.
Yeah, that's my point too. I mean, I don't love it, but I can start him week 1 and be okay with it. Or, I mean, he doesn't kill you in bye weeks or whatever. Good football player, and they gave him money. Money talks.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, I'm with you. Really kind of a similar conversation to what we had yesterday with those young Chiefs wide receivers. Is they're so cheap. The difference here is we've already seen production from Myers and from Renfrow. Get these guys on your roster, and you'll be able to start them certainly for points throughout the next season or two. Matt, next we're going to talk about a player that we want to sell. It looks like you and I are aligned on this one, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say about him. We'll talk about that sell next.
Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, whatever you want. There's tons to pick from, of course. All that on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. You're muted.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Let's continue our conversation about the Las Vegas Raiders. We're talking buy, sells, and holds. We suggested buying Josh Jacobs and Hunter Renfrow and Jacoby Myers as well. Matt, you and I agree on this player that we want to sell. Who is it?
Yeah, it's Michael Mayer, the rookie tight end. I haven't drafted him in any of my rookie drafts. I think he's a good football player, and I always feel like I'm saying negative things about him, but I would rather have Musgrave, and I've heard you rave about Musgrave. I don't know which one you prefer, but, certainly would rather have Kincaid. There's other young tight ends in the league I trust more, and one of my biggest issue, I think, with Mayer is history really shows that athletic testing matters for tight ends. 3 cones, change of directions. He wasn't a good tester, and that never settled well with me. I kind of think he's a reliable, move the chains, catch and fall down type of dude, maybe drag someone for an extra yard where you hit Musgrave in stride, he may run away from people. I just don't see a lot of dynamic qualities. And this is a long shot because I know they used a premium pick on Mayer, but there's a chance that Austin Hooper is better than him from day one. And Austin Hooper is not great. It just takes tight ends a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Michael Mayer. It sounds like I like him quite a bit more than you do. My issue here, and I put an asterisk by this one because I don't necessarily think he's a screaming sell. If you look at the Dynasty Trade Finder on DLF, he's not involved in these deals where he's going for a first rounder or going for other prospects or young players that we really love. That's not happening. What is happening, though, is he's the tight end 12 in our Dynasty ADP. He's being drafted ahead of Greg Dulcich, Chig Okonkwo, David Njoku, and being drafted several rounds ahead of the other name you mentioned there, Luke Musgrave. Essentially, I think he should be valued down in that Musgrave range. Musgrave is the tight end 16. So I just think we're overvaluing Michael Mayer. And I think it goes without saying that if you could flip him for Dulcich, Njoku, or Okonkwo, you should do that immediately. Yes. I don't think I would have the guts to make that offer, but the ADP suggested it might be close. So give it a try to move on from Michael Mayer. And again, like a lot of the players we've talked about, he's not a must sell, at least not in my opinion. Matt sounds like feels a little stronger about it. But I still see a lot of long-term upside in the player, but I do think we're going to have to be patient, not only because of what we've seen from Mayer in that pre-draft process, but the situation we're looking at here as well with quarterback issues.
Sure.
And Matt, as you said, possibly some head coaching questions down the stretch as well.
Real quick on him too. They also have O-line issues. He can be asked to block a lot. He's good at that. Musgrave's not going to be a blocker. And as you know, it's always hard to put a rookie in the sell category because you probably just drafted him in your rookie draft a couple of weeks ago. You liked them enough to get him. Nobody made you take him. So that's always a little weird.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those easier said than done situations. Essentially, I'm saying don't draft him in a startup over Dulcich or Okonkwo. I would not be doing that. I do want to talk to you really quickly about Jimmy Garoppolo in this situation. He comes over from San Francisco. It looks like a great fit. He's going to step in for Derek Carr. Gets seemingly the big contract that we expected him to get, but now there's more injury questions, and there's really always been injury questions with Garoppolo, unfortunately. And now his future, even as a Raider, is kind of being questioned. What do you think? What do you think of Garoppolo and really this entire situation with the Raiders?
Yeah, I think he's easy to bash and he's never on the field, but I think he's a quality player. And Carr had such a rough year. I think a healthy Garoppolo could be better than the last year version of Carr. and there is familiarity with the offense. I'm not saying Garoppolo is better than Carr, but I think, a healthy 2023 Jimmy might be better than what we saw in 2022 of Carr. But he's still the definition of a placeholder. Working in his favor, there isn't Will Levis sitting there breathing down his neck, that they'll pull him late in the year. I'm not going out to get him, though.
Yeah, it's really just kind of a bummer because you do have obviously high expectations for Devontae Adams. And as we talked about with Myers and Renfro, those are guys who have produced somewhat consistently, at least for how they're being valued in the past. And with Jimmy there, and with these injury questions, these health concerns, it just kind of brings like a damper to the whole situation.
No doubt.
Matt, go ahead.
I just don't think things go well for the Raiders this year.
No, I'm with you. Looks like a team that could be really one of the worst in the league. Maybe that's how they figure out their quarterback situation for 2024 and beyond. Matt, next we're going to talk about a couple players we want to hold and see how their 2023 season goes. We'll do that next. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Everydayers, check out tomorrow's show. Kate and Marcus will be back, and they will be ending this buy, sell, and hold series, wrapping up the NFC West and the entire NFL. So check out tomorrow's show. Matt, a player on this roster, and we've named them all here. We've talked about Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers, Renfro, Garoppolo, Zamir White, Trey Tucker, and Austin Hooper. Who's the one that you want to hold and maybe have some long-term hope for?
Yeah, I think this one's kind of sneaky in Zamir White. And I didn't love him coming out of school, but he seems about as clear of a handcuff as there is in the league right now. You mentioned Jacobs hasn't signed his franchise tag, could hold out at most. I don't know if I can say that, but maybe he's not a Raider a year from now. Signed a 1-year deal. Of course, they'll bring in somebody else. They're not going to say, hey, Zamir, you're going to be Josh Jacobs. But Jacobs could get hurt. He had a lot of touches last year. He just seems like at running back 73, he's a very cheap true handcuff, and he's young.
Yeah, totally love that one. I'm with you. And we've tried, as we've talked about these players to hold, we've tried to let you know if they kind of lean towards the buy or the sell category. And Zamir White certainly leans towards that buy as a player to take a shot on. And, if you're in a smaller dynasty league or at least one with smaller rosters, he might even be out there on the waiver wire for you. Again, RB 73 in our dynasty ADP. And that puts him, that puts him overall at, so far down the list, I can't find it, Matt. Let's see.
Yeah, enough said, right.
Yeah, 226 overall, 226 overall. He's behind Kareem Hunt, who doesn't have a team. He's behind his quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. He is way down the list. Totally agree with Zamir White as a player to hold on to if you drafted him. Certainly if you spent like a second rounder on him last year. All is not lost after that quiet rookie season, especially with the questions about Jacobs and his long-term status on the team. You said you took the easy way out yesterday with Patrick Mahomes as your hold. I did the same today because I've got Devontae Adams, the wide receiver 17, as my hold. And we say it every year. We say it all the time on this podcast that when you're talking about those veterans that you may possibly want to sell or move on from in your dynasty league, the time to do that is during the regular season. That's when they're going to hit that peak value. And, we have ADP charts and things like that available on DLF. And it becomes a roller coaster for these good veterans, these elite veterans, even in Devontae Adams' case. And we talked about Kelsey yesterday where their ADP dips in the off season. And when the regular season comes around, it's right back up. We're valuing them as the elite producers they are. And of course, at some point, we're going to see Davante Adams fall off. I mean, we've seen that, in recent years with guys like Julio Jones and AJ Green. And I mean, we could go on and on listing names like that. And Adams' time will obviously come, but he's also just turned 30 years old. So I think it's safe to say he's got a couple more years as a strong fantasy contributor. And at wide receiver 17, I just don't know if selling now is the best way to play the situation.
Yeah, I mean, as usual, extremely well said. The only two nuggets I would throw in there is I still think he is firmly in the conversation as the best wide receiver on the planet. I mean, I think it's not a slam dunk, but I could make the case as Davante Adams' lawyer that he is the best player at his position right now. And also, what if their season does really crumble? What if they're 1-5? Could he be a trade deadline guy? Maybe he ends up in Kansas City that we talked about yesterday. I mean, I know right.
That'd be fun. I mean, of course, the narrative was that he went to Vegas because of Derek Carr, and now of course Carr is gone, and I mean there was kind of some scuttlebutt about that maybe Adams would be ready to go next. He's kind of shown, or at least sworn his allegiance to the Raiders. But as you said, if things are going poorly, if they can cash in on that 30-year-old plus receiver and get a second rounder or something like that, then it could be a situation where it makes sense. That probably would not be a bad thing for him. You look at the trade finder, and again, Adams is mostly involved in package deals where it's three players for three players, something like that. I try to focus on those where the player's on his own. We've got a couple of those. Davante Adams for Jahan Dotson and a 2024 first rounder. Easily want the Dotson side there personally. But again, you got that strong contender. Adams is your wide receiver one. That type of deal becomes a little tougher to pull the trigger on. Davante Adams for Alec Pierce and a first rounder.
Ooh, the Dotson first rounder sounded more up my alley.
It sounded way better, right?
Yeah.
Brian Robinson, Brandon Ayuk, and a second rounder for Davante Adams. Zay Flowers and a first rounder for Davante Adams. Jerry Jeudy and a second rounder. Austin Eckler and Michael Carter. Those are all the types of deals that are going down for Davante Adams, and ultimately that's why he's a hold for me. Some of those I would definitely consider or even pull the trigger on, but in most cases I want a little bit more for a player of Davante Adams level.
Seems like a lot of prospect wide receivers and a nice pick,
Right.
It's okay,
That is going to do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. And I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.